NFL is finally back. We had our first full weekend. The NFL started on time, and it felt like a true NFL Sunday. I mean, yeah, there wasn't fans in the game. They pumped in crowd noise, but to be honest, it kind of felt like a normal Sunday of football, and it was such a relief to get it back. And this year's unique because we didn't have OTAs. We didn't have preseason games, games for people to complain that, oh, well, they shouldn't be playing these games. And they just jumped in. And so we got to see things for the first time. We got to see players in new spots. And it was fun to see. And because of all this change and this being the first time to really see, there's a lot of overreactions. And that's what I'm going to do here is I want to give my week one overreactions, things that stood out to me during these games. I've got about 6 of them that I want to talk about. And I get it, it's week one, and I know I'm overreacting, but these are just some things that kind of stood out and things that I think we could potentially have a big impact later on in the season, and maybe not. Maybe it's just 1 week and a team had a good game or a team had a bad game. That's going to happen. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing is I want to talk about that Chiefs-Texans game, the game that started off week one, and we got to see the Chiefs go on to a victory, beat the Texans 34-20. And a couple things that stood out to me. First off, with Texans, David Johnson, the Texans had this big trade in the offseason. They traded away DeAndre Hopkins to the Cardinals. They got David Johnson, and the Texans were widely bashed for this trade, and myself included. I didn't think it was a good trade for the Texans, but I was holding out hope. The fact that the Texans really wanted David Johnson made me think, okay, they've got a plan for him. Bill O'Brien's been able to use some backs. He's had kind of a combination, a misfit of toys with backs, and had some success. David Johnson, not too long ago, was one of the up-and-coming top running backs in the NFL. Injuries kind of robbed him of a couple years, so I was really anxious to see what he was going to do. And he didn't have this huge game, but you saw a little bit of the David Johnson of old. So that's going to be something I'm really looking forward to as the season progresses. The Texans offense didn't look good. It's week one. They haven't had a preseason. They didn't get to have joint practices with anyone. But I think this offense is going to pick up steam as the season goes on, and I'm really anxious to see how David Johnson goes moving forward. But the thing I really want to talk about in this game is the Chiefs, and not the offense. The offense is what we thought it was. I want to talk about this Chiefs defense. And yes, it's week one. Yes, they still gave up 20 points, but this Chiefs defense looks like it's ready to take that next step. Yeah, they got 4 sacks, which once again isn't a huge number, but they made Deshaun Watson and this Texans defense, our offense, and the Texans, they have an explosive offense. Sure, DeAndre Hopkins is not there, but they still got Will Fuller. They got Brandon Cooks, who's a deep threat. They've got pieces. They made Deshaun Watson look uncomfortable. They made him look like, forced him into making some mistakes. Chris Jones, a guy that they just recently paid, looks, he's not like, hey, I got the money, I'm just going to chill and collect. He looks even more unblockable than he has in the past. They still got Frank Clark. They added Willie Gay at linebacker to go along with some of the guys they have. The defense got Juan Thornhill back, along with Tyrann Mathieu. The Chiefs' defense is looking better in year 2 under Steve Spagnuolo. And that's got to be a scary thought for NFL teams. Not only does this offense have Patrick Mahomes and Clyde Edwards-Helaire looks like he's just going to come in and be a stud running back, but you're getting a defense that's going to come out there and help them. I'm not going to be shocked at some point this year if the Chiefs defense wins them a game. They might never need it with Patrick Mahomes in this offense, but this is scary for a team that just won a Super Bowl that looks like they're going to be winning many Super Bowls. The defense is getting any better, and that's got to be scary for everybody else in the NFL. Now, before the season started, and I was doing my NFL previews, when I got to the Seattle Seahawks, they were a team that I liked, and they had a lot of things going for them. I loved the addition of Jamal Adams, giving them an impact stud player in their secondary, a team that's got a good defense. I thought Jamal Adams was going to come in there and be their best defensive player. And they've got Russell Wilson. Anytime you have Russell Wilson, no matter who else they have around them, they are going to be a playoff contender because of Russell Wilson alone. So as I was going through this preview, there was the main point that I wanted to talk about with the Seahawks was there's two players that I felt the Seahawks really needed to have a big year to vault them from being just a playoff contender to a true Super Bowl contender. Darrell Taylor, their day 2 pick out of Tennessee, a pass rusher, he was one of them because they don't have Jadeveon Clowney. They don't have a stud pass rusher. He was one. Him and LJ Collier, I thought, really needed to step up to give that defense a true pass rushing presence. But the other player was DK Metcalf. And I thought, hey, he's got talent. He had a good rookie year. But if they wanted them to step up, they needed DK Metcalf to continue his development and be a legit number 1 receiver that Russell Wilson can count on game in and game out to go out and make plays. And I think everyone loves DK Metcalf because he's big, he's fast, and he can make some splashy plays. But I think we're too all in on him and overlooking some of his deficiencies, and he needs to continue to develop. Well, if week 1 is any indication, DK Metcalf is clearly on that path. Sure, he only had 95 yards, only 95 yards and a touchdown, but he looked like a dominant presence against the Falcons. And the Falcons aren't no slouch of a defense. Yeah, they haven't been to the playoffs the last few years, but they're still a team that is a playoff contender. And DK Metcalf looked like a guy that's ready to take that next step. Him and Russell Wilson have such a unique bond, and you can see that they're really hitting it off. And I think that's going to be huge for the Seahawks. You mix in Tyler Lockett had a good game too. He had 92 yards receiving. Russell Wilson had 322 yards passing. That's, I wouldn't say unheard of, but the Seahawks are a run-oriented team. So the fact that you got Russell Wilson and this passing attack humming right away week 1, I think that's a good sign. The 49ers, they lost to the Cardinals in this opening week. The Seahawks look like they're a team that's ready to take the NFC West crown back. And if week 1 is any indication, I think they're going to do it this year. Now speaking of quarterbacks, everyone's favorite quarterback to bash, Josh Allen, had a pretty I don't want to say great week 1. I don't want to say a roller coaster week 1, but he had a very interesting week 1 with their win over the Jets. And sure, it's the Jets, but Josh Allen, not only did he go out, he threw for over 300 yards, but he also completed 70% of his passes. And that's pretty substantial because Josh Allen has been, in his short NFL career and even his career at Wyoming, he's been criticized for his lack of accuracy. And so to finish a game over 70% passing is pretty remarkable. And I think the thing to kind of watch with the Bills and how they're handling Josh Allen is they've kind of tweaked that offense. Josh Allen's got this cannon for an arm. And I think the term cannon is an understatement. He's got one of the strongest arms we've seen come out of the NFL draft in quite a while. And they got John Brown, who's a speed receiver. They went out and traded for Stephon Diggs, another guy that's a very talented deep threat. So you still thought, hey, they're going to be a run-oriented team. They're going to take shots down the field off of play action. They're going to utilize, those deep drops and get Josh Allen out on the edge as a runner. But they kind of changed things up. And instead, they did a lot of short passing, getting the ball out quick to guys in space, getting the ball in those short to intermediate throws. And Josh Allen thrived in this. And so was that a week 1 situation? Or is this something that we're going to see? They even had a little bit of a tweak to more of a Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson style offense where they're kind of using him more as a runner rather than having him drop back and he just scrambles because no one's open. They're running a little bit more designed runs for him. Now, he did have a couple of fumbles that he lost. That's not what you want to see. But we're seeing for Josh Allen to take that next step, he has to improve as a passer. And if getting the ball out quick and short, rather than have them take 7-step drops and throw the ball 30, 40 yards down the field on a consistent basis? Is this going to help them be a more consistent offense and going to help Josh Allen take that next step? So now you're forcing these teams to have to cover the underneath routes, and then boom, you got Stephon Diggs down the field big. You got John Brown down the field big. I think that's really going to help him set up his deep ball game, and we know that he's got the arm to do it, and now he's got a couple horses that's going to be able to do it. So I can't wait to see what the Bills do moving forward. Now, coming into the season, there was quite the tanking for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, the Clemson quarterback, probably one of the best quarterback prospects we've had since Andrew Luck came out. Sure, we've had guys like, oh, Christian Hackenberg's going to be the next guy. Josh Rosen's going to be the next guy. Oh, we love Sam Darnold. Trevor Lawrence is one of those guys that as soon as he stepped foot on Clemson's campus, he's done nothing but showcase his ability and just looks like the next go-to guy. There's Justin Fields coming out. Trey Lance is a guy that a lot of people really like and love his potential. But Trevor Lawrence is that Andrew Luck type guy in more ways than once. Andrew Luck is my comparison to him. So there's going to be this tank for Trevor. And the two teams that we thought would really go after and tank for him were the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Washington football team. I mean, just look at what the Jaguars have done over the course of this offseason and even into last year. They traded away Jalen Ramsey. They traded away Yannick Ngakoue. They traded away Calais Campbell. They got rid of they traded away AJ Bouye. They had this stud defense. They had all these pieces, and they've just traded them away, let guys go, and it just looks like this team is just sitting there expecting to lose. And they're going to rebuild it from the bottom up with draft picks, and they just looked like a team ready to tank. And they got Gardner Minshew, which a lot of people love Minshew Mania. He's got a great personality, flashed at times last year, but no one thought that, they were clearly the pick for a lot of people to have that number one overall pick. Washington, kind of the same thing. Ron Rivera's coming in, they're kind of gutting the franchise. Dwayne Haskins didn't play well during his rookie year. There was talk that they might have taken a quarterback number 2 last year. They're another team that maybe they weren't saying that we're going to tank, but a team that a lot of people thought, hey, they're probably going to be picking in the top 3. Instead, both of these teams, not only did they go out and win, but they beat division rivals that we thought were much better than them. The Washington football team, they went out and beat the Eagles. Now, the Eagles were a team that I thought was a true Super Bowl contender. Now, they've had a lot of injuries, and that's kind of caused me to take a step back on that prediction, but they're still a team that should have easily beat the Washington football team. Carson Wentz was still playing. They got Jalen Reagor back. They've got 2 stud tight ends. They've got, enough pieces on that defense. They had, on paper, the team that should have won this game by 2 to 3 touchdowns. But instead, they don't. They lose. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they go off against the Colts, another team. Sleeper, they're playoff contender. They got Phillip Rivers. They got the strong offensive line. They got Jonathan Taylor. The defense is up and coming. Gardner Minshew goes out and shreds this defense. The Jaguars get the win. And now we're looking at the two teams that we thought were going to be tanking for Trevor Lawrence end up going out and winning their games. Yeah, once again, they're not going to go out and try and lose on purpose. I think the Jaguars are going to be a lot like the Dolphins last year, where the organization tanks by building the roster that they do, but I think the players are going to go out and play to win. Now, I don't think they have the talent that the Dolphins had last year. I don't think the Jaguars have the coaching staff that the Dolphins have, but they're going to go win some games, and they got to be careful because there's other teams out there like the Giants that could, don't have much of a roster that could lose and keep, staying down there. So the Jaguars have to be careful. I know the fans want them to win games, the players want them to win games, but it's clear the organization wants them to rebuild, and they more than likely want Trevor Lawrence. So this would be kind of curious to see how they end up doing. They had the 9th overall pick last year, or 10th overall pick. How are they going to end up doing this year? And would they end up playing their way out of a Trevor Lawrence? And how fitting would that be for the Jaguars, a team that looks to be getting their franchise quarterback, wins their way out of the first pick, ends up taking a quarterback that maybe doesn't pan out, or it puts them out of a position where they have to trade up to get a quarterback and completely mess things up. So those are the two teams I'm looking for the potential number 1 overall pick. And they're starting off the season with wins, so that's definitely shaking things up just a little bit. Heading into the season, there was talk of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were the talk of the NFL. Tom Brady, lifetime New England Patriot, leaves the franchise, goes down to Florida, and unites with Bruce Arians and a loaded team to push the Bucs into that Super Bowl contention. Here's a team that would play well at times, just wasn't good enough. They weren't bad enough, but they weren't good enough, so they're kind of in the middle. They've got Tom Brady now. They get Rob Gronkowski out of retirement. They're going to be this team. Well, they go out in week 1 and they lose, and the offense doesn't look good. But we can't overreact to this. I know it's the overreaction segment, but we can't overreact to, my overreaction is don't overreact to the Bucs' struggles on offense. This was what do we expect? Tom Brady has been the quarterback of the New England Patriots for like 10, 15 years. He's had the same offensive coordinator in Josh Daniels practically that entire time. The offense that they had in New England, in essence, is the Tom Brady offense. And he leaves, and he goes to Bruce Arians, who Bruce Arians has his scheme, and Arians isn't going to force his scheme on Brady. They're going to adapt it, but he's got different type of weapons. He doesn't have his Julian Edelman types. He's got his slot receiver, Chris Godwin, who is a complete stud, but a different type of slot receiver. He's got a big physical contested catcher in Mike Evans. They've got some tight ends. The offensive line doesn't have Dante Starnecchia coaching him. So there's going to be some growing pains. Plus, once again, we didn't have OTAs. We didn't have preseason games for Brady to go out there and work his kinks out. So they're going to struggle. I don't think it's something that you can panic about because it's going to take time. 17-week season. They're going to have time to iron out the kinks. They're still going to get to the playoffs, and they're still going to have a shot to make the Super Bowl. And let's also not forget that they played the Saints. The Saints were my pick to win the NFC, my pick to go to the Super Bowl. So let's not overreact to them maybe not looking so good against, in my opinion, maybe the second best team in the NFL. Just give them time. They'll be fine. And lastly, I want to talk about one of the Monday Night Football games. In the first Monday Night Football game, we had the Steelers play the Giants, and I get it. The Giants aren't good. This Giants organization, to think where the Giants have come from. Not too many years ago, the Giants were winning a Super Bowl. They had Eli Manning at quarterback. They had Odell Beckham Jr. at receiver. They had explosiveness to their offense. They had pass rushers. Now you look at this team, and outside of Saquon Barkley, what do they really have? Darius Slayton had a big game, and he looks like a capable receiver, but is he some guy that's a true number 1? Offensive line was a complete mess. You got Andrew Thomas with the 4th overall pick. He's probably going to play well, be a solid starter, and hopefully more, but he's still a rookie on a bad offensive line. And then defensively, who do they really have? Yeah, they got Dexter Lawrence, then they got Leonard Williams, but are those dominant difference makers on their defense? I mean, they've had those issues. They drafted DeAndre Baker. He got cut, gonna go to jail. They traded for Julius Peppers when they had Landon Collins, and it just seems like a complete mess. And they got utterly dominated, their offense, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Steelers were able to just disrupt Saquon Barkley didn't even have 10 yards rushing. And I drafted Saquon Barkley in my fantasy draft. I got him with the 4th overall pick. He kind of fell to me, and I almost didn't want to take him because I thought, their offense isn't good. Your offensive coordinator has been a head coach for the last several years who wasn't even the play caller on offense. He's going to now be the offensive coordinator. And the Giants look like a mess. The Giants look like one of the worst team in the NFL, in my opinion. And I'm not going to be shocked if they end up with that number 1 overall pick. But I want to talk about the other team playing. The Pittsburgh Steelers look legit. And here's a team that went 8-8 last year. Nearly made the playoffs last year with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph as their quarterback. Ben Roethlisberger is back. And Ben Roethlisberger didn't look great, but he still looked capable enough that now Juju Smith-Schuster's playing back up to his potential. Deontay Johnson, from Toledo, is playing well. They still got Chase Claypool. They're waiting to come on. They still got, Eric Ebron's playing well now again. The Steelers' offense, as long as Ben Roethlisberger stays healthy, they are a legit Super Bowl contender. It's going to be tough to get past the Chiefs. And the Ravens are going to be tough too. But they could easily be that 3rd team in the AFC. And a big part of it is their defense. Their defense was legit on Monday night. I know it's against the Giants, and I'm overreacting to that part. But their performance, they've got speed at all 3 levels. The defensive line just completely wrecked the Giants' offensive line. They've got, TJ Watt, Defensive Player of the Year candidate. You got Bush at linebacker that's coming up. You got corners. You got safeties. Minka Fitzpatrick was a complete stud last year. As long as Ben Roethlisberger is their quarterback, he doesn't have to be Big Ben that led them to Super Bowls. He just has to be capable and go out and distribute that ball. If he can stay healthy, this defense is going to carry them, and the offense has enough firepower that they could push if they match up with the Ravens in the playoffs, after what we've seen with the Ravens the last few years in the playoffs, I think the Steelers have an advantage. I think their defense can slow down Lamar Jackson. Can they have enough to slow down Patrick Mahomes? I don't know, but I can't wait to see what it looks like. So I am hoping that Ben Roethlisberger stays healthy, because the Steelers are going to be a fun team to watch come playoff time.